organisations that they need to cover their costs, but no more than that. They're no interest at all in maximising or increasing their profit. And then on the horizontal axis, we run from, this is the style of management. On the left-hand side, we have professional management. On the right-hand side, we have personal management. So even many personal companies managed by the founder, an entrepreneur, there is often professional management to assist them, particularly if they get beyond the small stage, but the driving force in the management is personal, not professional. Okay, so many family businesses are in this quadrant. The management is personal, and the basic objective is profit making but not profit maximising. Definitely not profit maximising. So many family businesses are in this quadrant. In the top left quadrant, we have many listed companies, professional management and a high focus on profit making, profit maximising. Many entrepreneurial businesses have personal management and a strong profit maximising focus, and many state-owned enterprises have professional management and mixed objectives when it comes to profit. They're much more cover costs rather than maximising profit. So we've got different patterns, different styles, depending upon ownership. Now, we come to corporate governance, and I think this is where our visitor is going at least to start. So, and he was to be here at 3 o'clock, which is in about 10 minutes. So if we, first of all, are there any questions on what we've talked about so far, or on what we've talked about so far this trimester, or about the assignment? No? Everyone's very happy with the assignment? You're either very happy or you haven't started. Okay. All right, well, we'll have a relaxed break. Please don't all get up and run away for a few minutes until our visitor arrives. Actually, just checking this, I see the assignment that's still a month away, isn't it? So there's probably lots of you who haven't actually done anything about it yet. it's all fixed.
It's a bit wet. Nobody's walking out there.
No. No,
I think it's going to get late.
he might be a bit late.
Yeah.
I'll give him another couple of minutes and then I might get started anyway. Oh. It's raining very heavily. So if the poor gentleman is trying to walk here from the LB building, he'll be wet. I was just leaving that building before coming over here, and I looked at the weather and I thought, it might rain. So I went back to my car and collected an umbrella, which was very fortunate. What I might do is jump on to where the section on governance sort of ends and move on to the next sort of subtopic, which is the role of boards. I mentioned before that at the top of many organisations, there is a group of people, a committee or a board, different sorts of names in different organisations, but there's very often a group of people who collectively manage the organisation. In companies, that group is called the Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors usually employ the Chief Executive Officer, and the Chief Executive Officer then directly manages the company. There are different ways of organising the structure of that executive board. Now, in the UK, the US and Australia, there's a single board, usually called a Board of Directors. In many companies, the majority of the Board of Directors are not directly employed by the company. So they're what are called non-executive directors. They're members of the Board of Directors, but they're not executives of the company. This gives them an independence from the operations of the company, which is extremely valuable. And these non-executive members of the Board of Directors represent very much, quite directly, the interests of the stakeholders, or the shareholders in particular. The members of the Board of Directors who are employed by the company will include the Chief Executive Officer, almost always a member of the board, and 2 or 3 or 4 other very senior executives of the company who will be members of the Board of Directors because of the position they hold within the company. So a Board of Directors is usually about half made up of executive directors, that is, people who are also executives of the company, and about half non-executive directors. And the executive directors, those who are employed by the company, very much inevitably have the interests of the company very central to them, whereas the non-executive directors are supposed to bring a broader view of the world and of the company to the Board of Directors, and representing the interests of the shareholders quite directly. Now, the extent to which non-executive directors are independent of the executive directors sometimes comes up, particularly when a company is having some sorts of difficulties, and the choice of non-executive directors is usually very strongly influenced by the views of the executive directors. So the extent to which the non-executive directors are really independent can often be questioned. In some countries, particularly Germany, and to some extent France and the Netherlands, there are 2 executive boards. One of these is a supervisory board, which represents a wide range of stakeholders. It's got lots of people, lots of different stakeholders represented on that supervisory board. And the most obvious, and in many cases, but not all, the most important group of stakeholders to be represented on that supervisory board are the workers in the company. Because in many a company in Australia, the UK, the US, the Board of Directors, whether they're executive or non-executive, well, they do not contain anybody who is there as a representative of the workforce. No one on the board is directly a representative of the workers. Now, in the supervisory board, the 2-tier board structure, the supervisory board does represent a much wider range of stakeholders and always includes strong representation of the workforce of the company. And in these cases, there is also a management board which is responsible for strategy and operational control of the company. But major strategic decisions have to be approved by both of these boards. And so, in principle, at any rate, in this system, the company could introduce some new strategies which the workforce might find most unfriendly. Whereas in the two-tier board system, management would have to get the supervisory board, which has a strong representation of the workforce on it, to approve such a strategy. So there are two different ways of going about it. This is more complex. This is a bit simpler. This, in principle, should lead to decisions that are more acceptable to the workforce. How well things work in practice, who knows? Now, there are two key issues for the board, any board, whether it's the two-tier structure or the one-tier structure. There are two key issues. One of these is delegation. How much authority, how much control over strategy and over operations does the board directly carry out itself, and how much authority does it delegate to the Chief Executive Officer, and how much does it allow the Chief Executive Officer himself or herself to further delegate powers. The board might say that the Chief Executive Officer can do this, this, this and this, but can't delegate those powers any further down the line. A board may not say anything like that. It might say the Chief Executive has these powers, and one of the powers the Chief Executive has is to delegate, and so some of those powers might get delegated down the line, possibly quite a long way, and be several stages removed from the board itself. So a lazy board might delegate responsibility for strategy several layers down in the organisation, which probably means that the organisation isn't really committed to whatever strategic plan comes forward. And the other key issue for the board in relation to strategy, these two issues are both in relation to strategy, is engagement. To what extent does the board itself get involved in discussions about strategy, and to what extent do they get a report which they give a big tick to or not, as the case may be? That's a question for a board to answer. Right. You made it through the rain. The deluge. I was just saying to the class that before coming over here, I looked at the weather and thought I might need an umbrella to get home. So I went to my car and got an umbrella and then came over here. But all right. You want a few minutes to catch your breath? All right, we'll continue for a little while. Okay, so to what extent does the board itself get engaged in discussions about strategy, and to what extent do they receive a report on strategy from someone to whom they've delegated that responsibility and consider it and give it a big tick, or say no? They can't really say no. It's very hard to say no to a completed report that comes to the board. So in some companies, the boards will spend time on strategic questions, real, genuine time, but often the people on the boards really don't have much expertise on strategic matters, and the non-executive directors may not have very much time to spend on strategy. They're busy being non-executive directors of other companies, or they have full-time jobs elsewhere. So it's often the case that the board of directors have neither the expertise nor the time to do very much on the details of any strategic planning. The third slide we have on the role of boards. There are some things that are generally accepted as good practice for a board of management. And although, I just add that although these statements are all phrased in terms of the board of directors of a publicly listed company, they apply pretty well to all sorts of management boards, committees and so on. If you've got a sporting club with an organising committee, the same kinds of issues arise, not entirely the same, they need some changes, but as we've commented that there are many different sorts of organisations to which you can apply this sort of strategic thinking, it applies to these sorts of things too. Okay, so the board should operate to some extent independently of management. In other words, it should be prepared to question ideas that come to it from the management. And this is where the non-executive directors, those people who aren't directly employed by the company, those directors who aren't directly employed by the company, their role is very important. Can they seriously question, critically, ideas that come to them from management within the company? Do they know enough about this business, or indeed any business, to be able to scrutinise the activities of managers and to look carefully at what managers are doing and ask possibly difficult questions? Why are you doing it this way rather than some other way? If you are a non-executive director and you know nothing about this industry and not very much about business generally, you will have a lot of trouble in critically scrutinising what your managers are doing, which is a problem because you're probably legally responsible for decisions that you make. Also having time to do the job, I mentioned that before, and it's important that directors on a board behave appropriately given what society expects of companies. And every time there's a corporate scandal of some sort, hits the media because someone has not been behaving appropriately, either as an individual or the whole board, then there are doubts raised in the community about how trustworthy are the banks, fast food industry, and so on. So it's important that board members, whether they're executive or non-executive members of the board, do behave in a manner that's appropriate given what the community expects of them. Now I'm going to stop there and invite our visitor to come and speak with us. First of all, Professor Doran Chuddy, who's the head of the Department of Management, will introduce our visitor. Now, for the benefit of the echo recording.
The students online. Thank you. Hello, class. This is the first time I'm here, so I don't know any of you, which is probably a good thing from your perspective. My name is Doran. As Maura said, I am the discipline chair of the management strategy management international business discipline in the school. So I'm delighted to be here because I don't know you guys, and I know the MBAI is a big program for us, and I'm simply dying to be in front of this class. So next year I might be a bit more involved in the teaching of the MBAI and other programs as well. But the main reason why I'm here today is to introduce you to one of our visitors who is passing through and is going to spend a few times with us in the school. Those of you who are taking international business will also have an opportunity to hear our visitor. So I'm delighted to introduce Professor James Sun from the University of Auckland. As you know, Auckland is not too far from here. But nevertheless, James took time to come and spend 2 weeks with us. James' area is in the international HRM sort of broader area. He does a lot of international business, cross-cultural type of work in his research. But today, he's going to make the connection between strategic thinking, strategic purpose, how organizations implement strategies. He's going to draw from some indigenous kind of examples from China, where he's got the expertise from. He's going to talk about how these companies, what's the whole purpose of strategic purpose, okay? So James will draw from a couple of examples. Most of you would have heard firms like Huawei, Alibaba. So that's the kind of story you will hear from James. So James is here with us for 2 weeks. His office is on level 5 in LB. I think LB 5.112, if I remember, maybe something like that. He doesn't know. It's still a bit spaced out. But drop by if you have any question for James. Murray is also available to answer some question. But this is a very important topic. Okay, strategy is being put at the forefront of in explaining business success. Now you have a good strategy. On paper, it looks good. It should work. Implementation is important. So James will draw on some of those, on the experience of maybe one or two Chinese companies which have experienced amazing global success. Strategy is even more important when you're taking a firm globally, because there the environment is much more complicated, much more complex than simply operating in a domestic environment. So I won't keep going on and on because I'm cutting into James' time. So I'll let James get started. And I will exit through this door. It's still pouring rain outside, but I'll brave the rain and I'll go back to LB. So thank you all. I'll see you. James, there's a bit of a song and dance here, so you have to wear this.
Okay, good.
I'm always curious to see people sitting way back.
Are you okay? Okay. Are you okay? I'm okay. Okay.
He's got a very...
I'm going to speak louder.
Yeah.
So I got...
If you can't hear him, go have your ears checked later.
This is very helpful. That's the loudspeaker. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Okay,
I'm very sorry. I'm a little bit late. I was supposed to start at 3 o'clock. It's, what's the time now?
3 o'clock.
3:20. Okay, anyway. I'll finish my boring presentation before 4 o'clock, right?
Now,
So 3 to 4. Anyway, thank you, Murray, for offering me this opportunity to share something with the lovely students. As you can tell, I'm originally from China, mainland China. I'm a China-made scholar. So one of my strategic purpose is to demonstrate to the whole world that made in China doesn't necessarily mean poor quality, including scholars like me. Seriously, because we Chinese get the very bad reputation so far, good at making, not necessarily poor, but not very good or reliable, stable products. Even the companies that I'm going to mention, which even from an outsider's perspective, because I spent a lot of time, tremendous, in overseas, in European, mainly in North America. As you can tell, my accent is a little bit North American. It's a little bit still difficult for me to understand Australian accent and the New Zealand accent. Like Steven, development, fried eye, liable, all this stuff. It's interesting. It's when I get used to that, familiar with that, it's okay. It's okay. So and as Doran said, my field of my research is mainly in human resource management, leadership, or sometimes kind of from that's remote here. Okay, good. That's helpful.
Forward and backwards.
Okay, I know.
And that one is a pointer.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I moved to Auckland last January as a full-time faculty, and then they give me the position. But strategically, this is some kind of a compromise for me because I'm losing the opportunity cost for me is huge. I'm losing almost 1 million renminbi annually by leaving China. And the people would just ask that why they bothered to leave China to work in a small island from the oldest, largest, one of the at least city, Beijing, to one of the smallest, youngest city in the world, Auckland. So why bother to do that? I said that this is a strategic plan or action for me, learning opportunity, and I'm very interested in understanding different cultures. And I believe that global mind or globalization is not only for business, it's for individual citizen, including me, myself, and not to say you guys, because what you would be facing, not only in the classroom, in the future, in your career, in the future career, is not only the people that you are familiar with, you feel comfortable with, might be somebody that you don't know each other, and you don't like them even, but you have to work with them. That depends on ourselves. It's not in my control. My understanding is, my interpretation is. So what I can do is to learn something, to accommodate myself to these challenges, competitions. I was talking with my students back in Auckland, because what I learned from teaching them is there are some kind of mainly Kiwi, Maori people. They're not these international students from India, Sri Lanka, or China. These local people are a little bit more narrow-minded, more relaxed, enjoy the life, and we are more workaholic. Because even me today, I spent almost 14 hours a day, 7 days a week in my office. Because I feel like this is my obligation as a human being. I should do something to the society, to the world, not only for myself. But just from the heart, I just feel like that nobody asked me. On the contrary, everybody almost asked me, hey, James, you're accomplished. You don't need to work so hard. Take time. Take it easy. Relax yourself. Go to the beach. Sit there without doing anything. Look at the sea and the sky. Yes, I know. That's good. But I can hardly feel just obligated. It's grateful to something. Anyway, so hopefully it's very simple, as I said, because I try to connect or to link my expertise with the class, with the paper that you are taking. It's a strategic purpose and a corporate governance. And I can share with you some of my research or my personal observations or experiences based on my understanding of Chinese companies, which could be a totally different story. Like when we say corporate governance, would you say China is some kind of autocratic country or democratic? Would you say North America, the United States, it's a democratic country? What's the corporate governance of North America, of the United States or Canada? What's the leadership of Donald Trump? It's democratic leadership? Authoritarian? Paternalistic? What I learned since I've been here, I spent some time in Macquarie and UNSW. I taught a couple of times, twice or 3 times, short-term course, very specific technical stuff, human resource, recruitment and selection in the international context or globalization context. in the UNSW, so I know a little bit about Australian universities. What I learned is very bureaucratic here. Like the mistake here actually is not my fault. I was expecting that somebody would show me the classroom or lead me or guide me to here, and nobody was prepared to. And I was waiting in my office. I said, you don't know where the classroom? I said, what? I'm your guest here. I'm not supposed to do. Nobody told me. What's wrong here? Because as the guest speaker in China, you would be treated as some kind of a royal prime minister. Because somebody would prepare something for you and tell you, at least tell you that, hey, this is something, that everything very detailed. I was told by both Murray and Dorian before I came, but mainly focused on the topic, the content, how to fit my lecture to fit your schedule or your topic. So when we talk about the corporate governance, I like this statement. Everybody knows this guy, because he's a famous guy. I don't need to mention his name. And for me, what is surprising is only 20 people, that Microsoft would not make any difference in the whole world. Unbelievable. He's not talking about the corporate governance. He's not talking about the purpose of the organization, missions, visions, this stuff, and including himself. He's talking that only 20 people. If we take up 20 employees for Microsoft, and then, if you like it, this book is extremely popular worldwide, and also has been translated into 40-something languages, including Chinese. And you guys are lucky, so you don't need to read the translated version. And this is also related with my theme or with my presentation. It's top 20, bottom 10. That's the famous ratio. Because in organizations, that the best employees, only 20%, the best employees, best performers should be rewarded, highly. There is always 10% poor performers which should be kicked out. Should be kicked out. Get out of here. None of your business anymore. We're doing business. And my question for you guys is, what's the reason? What's the logic here? How would you justify your statement? Believe it or not, like it or not, you may dislike it, because this is not humanistic. This is not unfair. Doesn't matter. What's the try to identify? Because anybody, when they state something, proposition, give us a proposition, statement, there's a logic behind that. We ourselves may not be aware of these logics, but we believe. So what's the logic behind these statements? There's only 20% best performers and 10% lower or poor performers. And for those 10%, we should kick them out. Let them go. And take the money to those best performers. Not for myself. Please. Not for myself. Jack Welch. That's for still give others. Give the money to others. But from you, take back. From you, get out if you're a poor performer onto her. Because she's better. She's doing better than you. What's the logic here? It's not corporate governance could help to explain. It has something to do with, of course, the purpose. Not necessarily the strategic purpose. The business purpose, including ourselves. Everybody has our own purpose for the whole life, for doing this program or degree program. Why bother to spend sometimes so much money and time in the life to learn something like Jack Ma. I would talk to tell you more about him. Jack Ma said, what do you learn in the business school? It's rubbish. If you want to do a business, you want to be a successful businessman, you don't need to go to the business school or do an MBA. But he himself is organizing the independent, high-quality business school, dependent from the system, the whole system of the society in China. For the voluntarily, he organized a couple, try to teach the people who are interested to do business, to be a successful business. And my question would be, yes, based on his personal experience, no problem. Are these universal laws? What we are teaching here in the university, in the formal program, may not fit into a very specific situation, because these are supposed at least to be the universal law. Had been verified scientifically, empirically. The universal law may not be working for any specific individual, employee, or person, or organization. These are big names, not only in China, worldwide. Almost, I was learned that Cambridge Judge Business School, and both these leading business schools are talking about Huawei technology today. And I am, to be honest, I am more probably eligible or qualified to share with you Huawei, because if you know anything about Huawei, these are very special 6 gentlemen from China, totally from Renmin University of China. It was named as 6 gentlemen, the nickname. The reason, 6 of us spent 3 years from 1995 to 1998 working for Huawei as a senior management consultant. We fly from Beijing to Shenzhen twice every month. We spent 2 to 3 days every trip and got very well paid. Of course, originally, there's no strategic purpose. It's only for making money, because we don't make enough money by teaching in the university or doing research or publication. So we have to do something. That's the system there. There's no regulations yet, 20 years ago. So we start our own business, consulting company. It's not a company yet, actually. It's more like entrepreneurs. And we build up gradually our reputation, credit. So Huawei Technology was looking for somebody who could help the organization to design more scientific, westernized management system, the compensation, performance appraisal, and also mention the vision, opportunity to try to identify the position themselves, all these stuffs. So we worked as a senior management consultant with them for 3 years. So we do knew at least the history or the practice in the 1990s, which is a crucial period of time for Huawei for the development of this company. Just started, because Huawei was registered in 1988 and started to manufacturing switch, telecommunication switches, and in 1992. And went into telecommunication in 1992. And I started to go to, at the beginning, they spent the key market, the main market for them is in the rural area, small, tiny, and underdeveloped. And then they believe that you have to go to big cities to be a giant in telecommunication. So they try to take the shift in the marketing, and which means a lot of change in terms of the organization culture, management, leadership, of course, corporate governance. And the most important, of course, is the purpose. What's the mission? That's the company. Just to make money? No. Because there are a whole bunch of opportunities, more probably, to make money, to get rich for any individual at that time in China. So you don't need to spend more time, energy. It's more some kind of a painstaking for manufacturing and high tech. Okay. So this is called the sixth gentleman. So many years ago, this is about 10 years ago, as you can tell, I'm still young. And Lenovo, because Lenovo is also very successful, but not so famous before they merged the IBM PC, right, in 2004, 5. But it has been a disaster so far. Not so successful. So when we talk about the international business, one of the interesting topics is merger and acquisition. I can hardly give you any successful cases so far. I don't know, Mary or Banjo could give you any so far. I believe. I'm kidding. But we do not only a few, probably a couple of fews. But anyway, like GD, like GD merged Volvo. GD is the owner. And Li Shufu, it was practicing so far, as far as I'm concerned. It's totally practicing what Murray with the last slides I saw, independently. He totally empowered his management team as the president, as the CEO, not CEO, the chairman of the board, of the director, because he himself doesn't know much about the auto industry. Manufacturing, marketing, no. He doesn't speak English. So for him, it's extremely difficult to communicate, to talk to his management team, not to say to management or staff. But the company so far is successful. Volvo is still doing a good job worldwide. But generally, we can hardly establish some systems or rules for the successful international merger and acquisition, right? And Lenovo also provided more lessons than experiences. Not to say international, and not to say China, only China. Even these are good examples. That's Kelly Fiorina, the beautiful lady, introduced by Hewlett-Packard. Try to make some changes. If you know anything about Hewlett-Packard, very good case study company. Humanistic, regarded the best, one of the best humanistic, put people first company, because they never ever downsizing their employees in the past 100 years. And what they do is to lower down, decrease the pay from top. And the Fiorina, Cardi, tried to change the culture. It's not a system. It's not a regulation policy. It's just the culture. Within 5 years, made the company, restructuring, transforming the company. Not successful. So didn't finish her term. Kicked out. Took 20 million thousand away. That's personal income, which is good. Purpose is make money? Yes, $20 million within 5 years. Good. After tax. But not successful. And this is another story, actually. Try to demonstrate to let you know that female managers or leaders had been very successful in business, but not in government yet. We don't have many political leaders, female leader, women leaders, but we do have a lot of female or women entrepreneurs, or even the managers or leaders in state-owned companies, like this lady. He's working for a state-owned company as the chairman. The company is and a group. This is the chairman at this moment of Huawei Technology. The chairman. Zheng Zhengfei is the CEO, and Zheng Zhengfei is the number one, absolutely. And we call it the spiritual leader. It's the God. It's the special God of the company. But he's the CEO, and he empowered the chairman of the board of directors to one of his close partner, work partner, business partner, because they understand each other. And it's difficult to describe the corporate governance here. She was fired, kicked off, stepped down from the president of the group, and now only the president of, Guri Electronic Appliance Corporation Limited. But she used to be the president of Guri Group, and there are many different industries also. I don't like him, to be honest. I'm jealous of him because he's smaller than me. He's uglier than me, I believe. But he's smart. He's much, much more rich because he's only less than 1.6 meters. This guy. They're very confident, you can tell, self-confident, really resilient, not very good education, system education, higher education, the third tier university degree, anyway. But he created that emperor, not only in China, probably for the whole world. I was learned that Alibaba is going to open their company in New Zealand, their online store stuff, and also here already. So I thought it's something, but I admire him. I don't like him, but doesn't mean that it's connected with the internet. See if we can learn a little bit, just give you a taste. If you're familiar already, that's okay. If you're not familiar, that's a review. This is the IPO day of Alibaba, the New York stock market. And you can tell that nobody from the company was standing on the bottom. These 8 young guys are their customers, the customers of Alibaba. For me, it's very touchable, because I can hardly believe that the company was just the public listed in the New York stock market. The president and the president and all the general managers or all these management team, none of them was standing